Speaking of the economy, Vice President J.D. Vance sat down for an interview with Fox News that aired last night. And in it, he addressed two big issues for Americans: affordability and housing.
I know that there are a lot of people out there, Sean, who are saying things are expensive. And we have to remember they're expensive because we inherited this terrible inflation crisis from the Biden administration. But you've already seen signs that things are getting better. The price of eggs has gone way down. The price of energy has gone way down. The price of gasoline has gone way down. And as we know, when the price of energy goes down, that starts to filter out into the entire economy. But that also takes a little bit of time. I care so much about our young people being able to afford a good life. A lot of young people are saying housing is way too expensive. Why is that? Because we flooded the country with 30 million illegal immigrants who are taking houses that ought by right go to American citizens. But here's what's different from the Trump administration, the Biden administration. The president is focused now on getting people good jobs, getting people higher wages, and bringing down the cost of goods. We inherited a disaster. We've chipped away at a lot of that problem in 10 months. But that's why you've got 4-year terms, because we're going to do a lot over the next 3 years, 3 months to make sure that more people can afford a good life. They can afford to buy homes. Young people can afford to start families. And we've actually got good jobs that put people on a career trajectory to stability. The biggest problem with the Biden economy wasn't even the affordability. That was the second biggest problem. The biggest problem with the Biden economy is that people had the kind of jobs where they couldn't build a career out of it. They'd make $14, $15 an hour with no promise of ever being able to make more. That is not how you build a middle-class American dream. That's how you build debt servants. And that's what the American people are becoming under Joe Biden. It's so important that we stay the course, keep these economic policies going so that Americans can own a stake in their own future, build the kind of life that every American deserves.
I have a question. How long can you keep this up? This blaming everything on Joe Biden when you own it. You're in charge. So it's all Joe Biden's fault. The president is finally focused on it, and immigrants took all the housing. Got it. Okay, check that one off. That really connects with the American people in a way as they're watching these ICE raids play out. Let's bring in contributing writer for The Atlantic and MSNBC political analyst Eugene Robinson and staff writer at The Atlantic, George Packer. He's the author of a new book entitled The Emergency, and we'll get to that in just a moment. And David Drucker is still with us as well. Gene, I just want to start with you on J.D. Vance's litany there. It's clear that they're seeing that the affordability issue meant something to the American people, especially given the last election. But we had the president, the commander-in-chief, calling it a hoax this week, or something like that.
Yeah, and that doesn't really work. You can't really tell people that they can afford more than they can actually afford. They know what they can afford. So that's a bad
con job.
Right. That doesn't work. It also doesn't work to just say Biden. I mean, I gotta hand it to J.D. Vance for being on message. He stayed on message, but you can't continue doing this as 2025, turns into 2026. We are more than a year past the election. We will be more than a year past the inauguration. Guess what? On January 20th of next year, those people who can't afford the rent or the mortgage today still won't be able to afford the rent or the mortgage. And again, you can't just keep saying Biden. And by the way, who was president before Biden? I think it was Trump. But he's got nothing else, right? If you got nothing else, go with what you got, and I guess that's what he's got.
And George Packer, you wrote a memorable profile of J.D. Vance earlier this year. So let's get you in on this. Yeah, sure, what he said, but also just like this moment for this administration, where it does feel like we talked about it an hour or so back. They're at their low point of this term, right? The Epstein stuff came at the worst possible time. Republicans losing the elections. Trump's poll numbers are sinking. Economic data is mixed. The tariffs are in jeopardy. The list goes on. And they don't seem to have much of a plan other than pointing to say, hey, it's the last guy's fault.
Right. And this is a vice president who, in the face of Hitler fans and neo-Nazis in his own party, is silent.
Right.
Even when they insult his own wife. His credibility is not all that high in my mind. He seems determined to hold together MAGA, which is splitting apart over the Epstein files, splitting apart over anti-Semitism and racism, which is infected large precincts, especially of younger MAGA followers. And Vance, because he has a history of having said the president is cultural heroin, has to be purer than pure about MAGA. So he can't make the most basic points, which is that Hitler is poison for the Republican Party. So I think he's got a pretty shaky foundation to be standing on.